Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Activities for People Living at Home with Dementia. My name is Gail Snyder. I'm the Executive Director for Dementia Friendly Fort Worth, and we're proud to offer this program with funding from the Area Agency on Aging and the United Way. This is a recorded program and is made available for future play through a YouTube channel. And today our program is Cookie Conversations. So I'm in the kitchen and we are making chocolate chip cookie. So here's our recipe, and I'll email this out to all those who participate after our session is over. And now I'm going to stop my screen share so that you can have a bigger picture of what's going on in the kitchen. So we're making chocolate chip cookies. And so we're going to get started with 2 cups of flour plus 2 tablespoons. Okay. 2 cups plus 2 tablespoons of flour. And then we need a half a teaspoon of baking soda and a half a teaspoon of salt. Y'all are awfully quiet this morning.
Watching the master.
What's that?
Just watching the master at work.
Watching the master at work. I don't think so. All right, so I want to mix that in so that all of the soda and the salt isn't in one cookie. And then it calls for 12 tablespoons of unsalted butter, melted and cooled. And so I've already done that.
12 tablespoons. Wow. So what is that, 2 sticks?
That's a stick and a half is what that is. So I'm going to pour that melted butter into my mixing bowl.
So the calories are been taken out of this, right?
Of course. And then we're going to add a full cup of brown sugar. And you want to pack it down really good. And I like the dark brown sugar. Some people prefer the light, but I like the dark. Cup of brown sugar. And then a half a cup of granulated sugar. And then we're going to mix that all together. This is where all the calories are, in the sugars and the butters.
Of course.
And then this recipe calls for 1 egg and 1 egg yolk.
That's different.
And these are farm fresh eggs, so I always crack them into another container so that I don't accidentally ruin what I'm making, in case you happen to get one that's not good.
Good idea.
We're going to add that to the batter. And then we're going to add the egg yolk to the batter and mix that together. And then we're going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Now, how many of you, when you were a kid, you thought vanilla smelled really good when your mom was making cookies and you wanted to taste it?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Very much so.
And my grandmother warned me, you're not going to like it. But I still had to taste it, and I
Still had
did
to taste it.
once I tasted it.
Then you got to taste the cookie batter before it goes into the oven,
Yes.
too.
When I was young, we stayed at my grandmother's a lot because my mom worked full time. And so she was always baking something. And when we were really little, she would let us sit on the kitchen counter while she baked the cookies. And she would let us taste it right out of the bowl. And my grandpa would come into the room and say, Virginia, you ought not to let those girls eat that cookie dough right out of the bowl. But she let us anyway. Okay, so now we're going to add the flour that has the salt and the soda added. This is actually, to me, a fairly quick recipe. It doesn't seem like it really takes very long. And I've already preheated the oven to 325 so that it will be ready when we're ready to put the first batch in. This is where I like to taste. But I'll spare you. Since you can't taste, I'll spare you.
Thank you, Gail.
We need an aroma thing on the computer where we could sniff it.
Yes, because you can smell the sugars and the butter in this. It's got a little bit of a thick consistency, and that's what you want so the cookies will hold together. And now I'm going to do something a little different because I have 60% cocoa chips. These are a little bigger, like this, so they're not the regular chocolate chips. And then I have miniature chips, which are little tiny chips. And I have M&Ms. My husband prefers the ones with M&Ms. I also have some pecans, and we're going to chop some pecans for some of them. And then I'm going to use some of this and chop it and put it in as chopped pieces instead of chips.
Dark chocolate?
You like the chocolate?
Yes. Dark chocolate and red wine, they're both heart healthy.
So, Steve, do you like dark chocolate?
Yes, I do. Yep.
What about pecans?
It's all right. I'll eat them. I love pecan pie because that's all sugar.
Pecan pie.
That's
But
all
you
sugar
don't
and butter.
necessarily want pecans in your cookies.
I do I'll eat anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to start by going ahead and chopping these pecans so that we've got all of our add-ins ready to go. And I have a chopper, but I don't want them chopped to crumbs. So I'm going to use my knife to chop them up just enough so that they're not big whole pieces. Okay, so now I'm going to divide the dough into 4 different portions so that we can do some of each. Actually, 2, 3. Yeah. Okay, so I've got 4 different sets of batter. So we'll start with the mini chips. Now, do y'all like lots of chips or just a few?
Lots of chips.
Lots of chips. What about you, Steve?
Yep, lots of chips.
Okay. So I've mixed in the mini chips. Does that look like enough chips?
Yes.
See that?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And now we'll do the dark chocolate chips. These are a little harder to stir in. And that's the one I'm going to add the pecans to, because I like the dark chocolate ones the best. Now we're going to add the pecans to that. And stir those in. And then the last group that we're going to do are the M&Ms.
You're going to have enough room in that batter?
Do I have what?
Enough room in that batter for all of that?
They'll be full of M&Ms.
Yes.
All right.
I thought you were going to chop up some of the chocolate.
Say that again.
I thought you were going to chop up some of that chocolate bar.
Oh, I am.
Okay, okay. I'm sorry.
Glad you reminded me. I got ahead of myself. So which one should we add the chocolate bar to? Oh, I got one more.
Yep.
This chopped chocolate bar is also good added to homemade ice cream.
Oh, yes.
I like chips and ice cream.
We have one of those countertop ice cream makers where you can make ice cream in about 30 or 40 minutes without having to do very much work. So I'm just going to chop this in different sized chunks. I've got 2 squares here. So the squares are about like this. And I'm going to chop 2 of those and see how much that is.
At Oasis last year, we did a day of making homemade ice creams. I think we had, I don't know how many ice cream makers, 12, 13, something like that.
Uh-huh.
And divided into groups, and each group had their own mixture, and they put them in there and froze them up while we did other activities. And so we got to make our own ice cream.
Did anybody bring an old-fashioned crank freezer?
No, they use just the Cuisinarts,
Right. The countertop ones?
right, yeah. Now, we lived in Thailand, we used the crank ones, hand cranked ones,
Uh-huh.
because they always make the better ice cream.
Okay, can y'all see that?
Yes.
So it's chopped at different sizes.
Yep.
I have a story to tell you about this. After we get the cookies in the oven, I have a story to tell you about chocolate chip cookies. But it's not as funny as the story you told, Steve, last time we made cookies.
I don't even remember what the story was.
About the can of Crisco.
Oh, yeah.
You want to tell Patrick that story?
I worked for folks in South Dakota at one point in time. We lived in a rural community, and the lady was going to make some cookies or something, and she ran out of Crisco, so she ran into this little store in the community. Had been there for years, and bought a can of Crisco and came home and opened it up, and it didn't quite smell right. So she looked at the date, and it was like 1950 date. And this was back in the 70s, you know. So she decided not to use that. It's a good story. We had a good laugh about it too.
You know, the most fun making ice cream when you were a kid was we argued over who got to sit on top of the crank ice cream maker. Because they piled the ice in it, and then newspapers, and then a quilt, and some little kid sat on top of it while they cranked it, and we thought that was the neatest thing in the world.
It was the best job to get.
Yep, that was.
I liked the job where you got to taste it to see if it was done yet.
Oh, that's good. That was the best one. One of the best.
Okay, so now we've got the chocolate chunks mixed in, and this one looks the best to me. And so now we're going to put a batch in the oven, and I'm going to do some of each cookie so that before our program is over, you'll be able to see how they turn out. And this recipe actually calls for you to make pretty large cookies, but I like mine to be all about the same size and not too big. And so I'm using a scoop. It's not as big as an ice cream scoop, but it gets you a nice sized, can you see that?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I can fit 12 cookies on this. So now I'm going to do the dark chocolate with the pecans. Three of each. And now we have the mini chocolate chips. And last but not least is the M&M. And when my kids were young, the M&M ones were their favorite.
Well, they're still good because there's a lot of color in the M&M cookies.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now we have all 4 types of cookies on one sheet. And yesterday, I baked cookies and prepped them, and you should receive a box in the mail.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Tomorrow.
Thank you.
I discovered I didn't do the ones with the chunks. I didn't think of that until this morning. But you have the dark chocolate chip with the pecans, the mini chocolate chips, and the M&M. And I think the M&M and the mini chips are going to fare the best.
Okay.
Because it's warm. So when you get them, I want to know how they were, because the big chocolate chips were trying to melt even as I was packaging them.
Okay.
And so I think if you're mailing cookies, you need to use M&Ms.
Probably.
So I'm going to walk over and put these in the oven. And I set the timer for 9 minutes, and then we'll check them to see if they're done. So now I'm going to share with you my story.
Okay.
And I need to reshare my screen. Okay. So I thought it might be interesting to learn a little bit about the history of the chocolate chip cookie. Some of you may know this already. The chocolate chip cookie was invented by American chefs Ruth Graves Wakefield and Sue Brides in 1938. She invented the recipe during a period when she owned the Toll House Inn in Whitman, Massachusetts. In this era, the Toll House Inn was a popular restaurant that featured home cooking. And so I guess that's where the Toll House chocolate chip cookies got their name. And I also found an article that said that the chocolate chip cookie was created by accident when in the 1930s, 1938, according to the other article, Ruth Wakefield added broken chocolate bar pieces to her cookie batter, thinking that it would melt and make the batter chocolate.
Okay.
Instead, the classic dessert was born on July. Oh, no, that date is the date of this article. And something else I read said that she was actually looking for something to accompany ice cream.
Okay.
So I think she was probably trying to make the chocolate wafers that they use for like ice cream sandwiches.
Okay.
She thought that chocolate was going to melt, but the chocolate didn't melt in the cookie, which I think is very interesting that it doesn't melt, because chocolate usually melts pretty easily. So had either one of you heard the history of the chocolate chip cookie?
No, I hadn't.
Nope.
I had not either. And as many cookies as I've baked, I had never looked that up. So
Thank you, Gail.
we were talking about ice cream earlier. What's your favorite homemade ice cream?
Vanilla.
Always vanilla.
Vanilla?
Vanilla.
Vanilla.
It's really good with crumbled up Oreos sprinkled on top of it.
It is.
We do it basically vanilla, but in Thailand we'd crush up candy canes and throw in.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah.
So it kind of made it a peppermint?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Or we do whatever fruit we could have, find that would go into it,
Right.
things like that. So
I had homemade ice cream with peaches in it. Actually, when I was in high school, we had ice cream in my history class for some reason, and somebody brought peaches and we had peach ice cream. But I do like a good chocolate ice cream, like Dutch chocolate. And we've also made one where you melt the chocolate and you drizzle it into the ice cream maker, the countertop, as
Right.
it's baking.
Yeah.
And so then that chocolate hardens in whatever shape it gets into there. And so it's not chips, but it's got a little bit of chocolate into it. And it's kind of like that chocolate when people used to get dipped ice cream cones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Would it come out like a swirl?
yes, all different ways. Sometimes there would be a clump, and sometimes because when when you're drizzling it into the top of the freezer, the motion, sometimes a big clump would come out, but then sometimes it would just be little string drizzles of frozen chocolate in the in the ice cream batter.
I remember when we first moved to Texas, we did at a church social. They're going to have homemade ice cream social.
Uh-huh.
Walked in the kitchen, everybody had brought Bluebell.
Oh. That was disappointing, huh?
Well, but sometimes Bluebell is just, yes, it was disappointing seeing that, but, I guess that's considered homemade ice cream in Texas, is Bluebell.
Right. Well, I grew up in Oklahoma, and the Brahms Company is from the town where we lived when I was in middle grade school.
Okay.
My grandparents pastored a church there. And so Brahms ice cream has always been a favorite of mine, and they have so many different flavors. My mom's favorite was butter pecan.
Mm.
And my kids call that old people ice cream.
Old people ice cream. That's good.
Because it's a flavor kids don't like, I guess.
Your taste buds.
Butter pecan or black walnut.
Yep.
So I'm going to take a peek over at the cookies and see how they're doing, and I'll be right back.
All right.
Okay, so I'm real carefully going to spin the camera around because I have it on a mobile cart so you can see what the cookies are doing in the oven.
Right.
Can you smell that?
Yeah, I
Oh,
can. Yeah. It's
Smells
coming
really
through, Gal.
good.
Yeah, yeah.
They're starting to spread out. It's not fair to tease you like that, but since you have some on the way, I can be a little bit more mean.
we'll let you slide.
Okay. Well, I hope you get them tomorrow. All right. I'm going to go ahead and put out some more of the cookies. Get my camera readjusted so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to go ahead and put some more of these to bake. And then I'm actually, since I've already sent you your cookies, I'm going to put some of this in the freezer.
It
Because
doesn't tempt you too much. It doesn't
What's
tempt you
that?
too much, right?
it's too tempting for me to
Yes.
eat them.
Right.
Now, do you put the cookies in the freezer or do you put the batter in the freezer?
Now, what I like to do is go ahead and make it into the scoops and put it in the container and freeze it. And I put parchment paper between it. And then whenever I want to bake a few cookies for a quick dessert after dinner, all I have to do is pop them on the cookie sheet, and in 10 minutes, you've got cookies.
It's a good idea.
And not a lot of mess, because you already did the mess and cleaned it up. All right, and now for the M&Ms. Now these will be ready to go in the oven when the others come out. All ready, nice and uniform. And our cookies are almost ready. Timer's just about to go off.
So what do you bake them for, 12 minutes?
No, actually, these only take about 9.
Oh, okay.
There it is. Actually, I think these need just another minute. And that's partly because the cookie is smaller than the recipe suggested. They actually want you to make the ball bigger and break it in half and turn part of it 90 degrees to kind of give it a different texture. But I tried it with this scoop and it came out really well. So, and I like a smaller cookie rather than a great big cookie.
That way you can just throw the whole thing in your mouth.
But if you like your cookies really crispy, you might want to bake them 10 to 12 minutes. But I prefer mine a little more chewy with just a light crisp on the edge rather than a cookie that's crisp that when you try to break it, it crumbles.
Mm-hmm.
These, when they come out, they're going to be where you can break it in half and it's not going to crumble unless I try to eat it before it's hot, before it cools.
You've always got to try that.
Yes. All right.
Looks good. All right.
And all the chips stayed within each of the cookies. And can you see the ones on this end?
Uh-huh.
Those are the ones that we chopped the chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
There's all different sizes of chocolate in there.
Looks delicious.
Yes.
I'll take a picture of some of these and send it when I send out the recipe.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
thank
you
you.
can see what they look like. a little closer up. So I'm going to go ahead and put this other batch in the oven and reset the timer for 9 minutes. The other thing about the timing on how long they bake is the recipe said to put the oven at 325, which helps them to bake a little bit slower.
Okay.
So now I'm going to go ahead and start taking those off the sheet. There we go.
Nice.
Nice. Did you get a good taste to that?
Yep. Yep.
It didn't all turn out exactly the same size, but they're pretty close.
If they're all the same size, it's kind of boring.
All right. So now those are cooling and the last batch is in. So we've completed our cookies for today, and I hope that you've enjoyed our session. And let me just share with you what we're going to do for Monday. Monday is our Ageless Grace Movement program, and that will be at 10:30. So I hope you can join us for that. Y'all have a wonderful weekend, and thanks for joining us for Cookie Conversations.
Thank you, Gail.
Thanks. All right.
All right.
Y'all
Bye-bye.
have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.